What is high functioning anxiety? Now, maybe you're someone who's getting everything done, you're showing up, you're performing at the highest level around everyone. But under the surface, you are an anxious mess. And even worse, you are exhausted beyond belief. If that sounds familiar to you, you are likely experiencing something called high functioning anxiety. It's a form of anxiety that often hides under success and productivity, and I'm here to talk about it. Hello, welcome to Your Anxiety Toolkit. This is a podcast where we talk about anxiety and how to help you suffer less. My name is Kimberly Quinlan. I'm an anxiety and OCD specialist, and I have helped thousands of people around the world, my students and my clients, helping them overcome anxiety. Now, high functioning anxiety is actually something I see quite often in my caseload. It isn't a technical formal diagnosis, but it is definitely something that wreaks havoc on many people, especially if you're a high achiever or someone who goals really high and has huge expectations on themselves. Now, on the outside, you look like everything's going really well. You look like you're thriving, but on the inside, you're barely holding it together. And it's a very, very lonely experience. Okay, so let's look at the agenda. In today's episode, you are going to learn what is high functioning anxiety, why it even matters, and I'm going to teach you how you can support yourself if you're struggling in this specific area. Now, let's first get really clear on what high functioning anxiety is. Number one, it is not a clinical diagnosis. I would say I see it in about 80% of my clients who have anxiety disorders, OCD, or some kind of mood condition. It is highly, highly problematic. It creates a lot of distress in people, and I would go as far as it's equal to the other conditions that I'm treating. So what we want to look at here is that high functioning is often when someone is experiencing significant anxiety, but they're still able to maintain a very high intensity of productivity and achievement in their personal and professional life. So just think about it in terms of an anxiety disorder means there is disorder. It's impacting their ability to function. Now, there are a lot of people who are functioning at the highest rate, but they still have an anxiety disorder. And often in that case, they are what we would consider someone with high functioning anxiety, but they are barely functioning. That's the thing to remember. It looks like they're highly functioning, and they are highly functioning, but only just barely. They're scraping every last bit of energy they have to keep that functioning going. So let's take a look at the core three main parts of the symptoms. The first one is folks with high functioning anxiety who have excessive worry and overthinking. They have an excruciating degree of perfectionism. They feel like everything has to be flawless. They're very driven. They're afraid of criticism. They have difficulty relaxing. They find resting to be even more anxiety provoking, which is often why they keep going at such rapid rates. They tend to be people pleasers. They overcommit. You know the whole saying of like, if you need something done, give it to the busiest person in the room. That's this folks, the people who are high functioning anxious people. They're highly critical of themselves. This isn't for everybody, by the way. You might have some of these symptoms, not all, but they tend to be highly critical of themselves, and they often have a high degree of irritability. So they're functioning highly, but they start to feel really annoyed at people who aren't. They're very quick to sort of snap and get mad at people or to start crying when behind closed doors because they're holding so much internally. Now, there are also physical symptoms. In fact, a lot of my high functioning anxious folks come to me not because they want help with their anxiety. They've come because of a doctor's referral. They've shown up to either the ER or for a doctor or urgent care with some of these physical symptoms, and the doctor has said, you sound like you're under chronic amounts of stress and pressure, and I need you to slow down. I need you to go and see Kimberly. And so in that case, physical symptoms may include muscle tension. They might be digestive issues. Sleep problems is a big one, often a lot of insomnia. Cardiovascular issues such as racing heart rate. Maybe they're having panic attacks, feeling off balance, lightheaded. Maybe they're fatigued or they're like constantly fatigued. And we're going to talk about burnout here in a second. Then maybe they're sweating and trembling. Again, these are all symptoms of people. They come to the ER and they're again treated and then said it's time for some therapy. Now, there are also what we call secret signs. These are signs that you would notice, nobody else would. This is you under a table. I get that feeling. I've had high functioning anxiety. I know exactly how it feels. But there is that constant busyness, feeling like you always have to be going. You have guilt when you slow down. You're always focused on being over prepared. You like going over, reviewing what mistakes could I make? How can I get ahead of that? How can I prevent that? I don't want anyone to see that I can't handle myself or that I'm falling apart. And often you're hiding symptoms, right? So maybe you're lying, you're being dishonest about how much you're struggling. When people say, "How are you? How are you really?" You put a smile on your face and you say, "No, I'm fine." But underneath, you're really not. Another huge one is shame. People with high functioning anxiety have a ton of shame and they feel too ashamed to ask for help. And that's supposed to say help. I don't know why it's got those extra letters in there, but we're going to let it be. They have a lot of anxiety about asking for help or admitting that they're barely functioning. Now, I've also listed here benefits, but I don't actually mean there are technical benefits to high functioning anxiety. I'm sort of rolling my eyes, and this is sort of more of like a sarcastic benefit. Number one, people with high functioning anxiety are often praised for their productivity. Society reinforces this behavior, which makes it even harder to recognize the toll it's taking or even harder to ask for help. And often, folks with high functioning anxiety are highly successful and they don't want to give up their success. They've spent all this time climbing to the top and they finally realize that they're falling apart and they're so afraid of letting it all crumble to the ground. Now, what we want to do here is we want to understand the high functioning burnout cycle though, because this is going to be really important for you really to recognize what's going on and what is actually happening underneath all of what's going on. So often people with high functioning anxiety are really intelligent. They're very, very capable people. Again, if you need something done, head over to find a high-functioning anxious person. But what happens is that those people take on really big, really difficult tasks or many, many, many little tasks. And they complete those tasks very well. And then they get rewarded for it. They get praised, they get, awards, they get accolades because of it, they get compliments because of it. But as a result of them working so hard and rising to the top, they're exhausted. They have a lot of shame, they have a lot of loneliness. But what happens is in fear of being found out, they keep going. And so they keep taking on bigger tasks. They complete those tasks. They feel praise. Then they have exhaustion. Often they get sick or they fall in a heap and they need to take a break or a hiatus from work. But they come back and they go right back into the old behavior of high achieving and this cycle starts again. And so as always at Your Anxiety Toolkit, I'm going to give you some tools that you can take with you if you're someone who really resonates with this. Now, always we're going to start with self-compassion. We're going to acknowledge that this is really, really hard. This is not a fake condition or a fake disorder. This is real, true suffering, an extreme degree of suffering. It just doesn't look that way and doesn't appear that way. Now, the first thing I want you to do is be honest. Tell somebody. Commit to being honest to somebody, whether it's a therapist, your doctor, your partner, your parents, your loved ones, a friend, somebody. Be honest and let them know. Maybe it's your boss and say, "I am falling apart. I cannot maintain this. I'm doing the best I can, but it's just figuratively and literally too much for any human to take on." Again, here we want to create a new relationship with rest. Instead of seeing rest as a weakness or vulnerable or lazy, we want to understand that Olympic athletes rest really hard so that they can perform well. And a big part of you overcoming high functioning anxiety is learning how to get restorative rest. We're also going to have to learn how to validate yourself, because often what high functioning anxious people do is they go, "You're really tired. Yes, that is a fact, but it's lazy that you're tired, or it's weak that you're tired, or you should be able to perform at that high level." And we want to flip that to validating, yes, I have been doing a lot for a human being. Human beings aren't actually supposed to do this much all the time. You're going to need to learn to say no, and you're going to learn to say no in a kind and respectful and a compassionate way. I really want you to learn that. You're also going to resist the urge to apologize repetitively for saying no. Often what happens, and I've seen this, is they go, "Fine, I'll say no." They take a bunch off their plate, but then they start apologizing to everyone for the fact that they are starting to take care of themselves. And if that's you, we're going to commit to not apologizing all the time. Again, we're not going to say that. Now, if you're someone who really has a lot of anxiety that's showing up in your life, head on over to cbtschool.com. We have a whole course called called Your Anxiety and Panic Toolkit. It is an online on-demand course. You can listen to it as many times as you want. We have a full workbook, and it will help you sort of manage the day-to-day generalized anxiety and panic you might feel. Now, here are some things to remember before we finish up. Number one, you can recover from high-functioning anxiety. Your worth has nothing to do with your productivity. No matter what society says or what your family says or your boss, your worth is there whether you're highly functioning or not. And that you have the capacity to ride through this wave with grace and strength. This is a thing that you need to learn. You will benefit in your life once you learn these skills, and you would need to go gentle as you practice them. But you do have the ability to change and make a new life for yourself where you're not constantly absolutely exhausted and burnt out. As always, I want to thank you for your time. I know how valuable your time is, and I'm so grateful that you're taking your time to spend it with me. I cannot wait to see you in the next video, and I hope you have a beautiful day.